It's easy to complain that our world is too violent, too mean, too cruel, but if you're looking for somewhere nice to live, you might want to look back in time. Sure, life was tough, but at least it wasn't boring. Just ask these lucky folks who survived the Pleistocene era, an ice age that lasted from 2.6 million to 11,700 years ago. They lived among monsters, and we're not just talking about woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers. This was a time when the earth was full of bizarre beasts that would terrify even the most seasoned monster hunter. Hi, it's me, and this is my channel. Today we'll meet some of the weirdest, scariest creatures that shared this planet with our ancient human ancestors and see how they coped with living among the monsters. One of the first things you should know about the Pleistocene era is that it wasn't one single ice age. It was actually a series of ice ages and warmer periods that scientists call interglacial periods. The most recent ice age started about 115,000 years ago and ended about 11,700 years ago. During this time, much of the northern hemisphere was covered in ice sheets up to 3 kilometers thick. Most of the world's fresh water was locked away in glaciers, which dropped sea levels by about 400 feet. At the same time, however, warmer interglacial periods saw temperatures only slightly cooler than today's, and during these times, humans and monsters alike thrived. So, what kind of monsters did our ancestors have to deal with? Let's start with the familiar. Mammoths were large, furry mammals with long tusks that lived across Eurasia and North America. In fact, they were so widespread that archaeologists find their bones everywhere, including under parking lots and shopping malls. Scientists think they went extinct around 10,000 years ago, perhaps because humans hunted them to death. But you wouldn't have found any mammoths in Africa, because this continent was home to an even bigger, heavier monster, the African bush elephant. These massive creatures stood 13 feet tall and weighed up to 6 tons. That's about twice the size of modern African elephants. Their tusks could grow up to 11 feet long, and they likely used them to uproot trees and build shelters. Unfortunately, there's very little evidence that humans and giant elephants ever met. So we can't say how well they got along or whether humans hunted them to extinction. But humans weren't in Africa for long before they encountered another horrifying beast, the hyper-carnivore. No, not the hyena. This thing was way bigger. It was also known as the border beast and looked like a cross between a hyena and a bear. It had short, strong legs, a big head and neck, and huge claws. Its skull was almost as large as a doorway. Imagine trying to hide from something that looked like that. Well, it probably wouldn't be hard because they were pretty stupid. Like modern hyenas, they hunted in groups and ate pretty much anything they could catch. But they weren't all that picky. They've been found scavenging on dead carcasses, too. Of course, these African monsters weren't all plant eaters and scavengers. There was also the Acrocanthosaurus, a dinosaur that lived in what is now Saudi Arabia. It was a carnivore that reached lengths of 15 meters and weighed 14 tons. It roamed Africa until the asteroid that killed off all the dinosaurs hit the Earth. So if humans ever made it to Africa before then, they would have had to watch out for falling space rocks. But maybe they would have been more concerned with the little green monsters that infested their crops. We don't know exactly what these plants looked like, but we do know that they grew to enormous heights and spread quickly. One fossil suggests that they may have grown up to 18 feet tall and had grape-like clusters of flowers at the top. Others were probably short and stocky to prevent them from toppling over in high winds, but they may have grown so tall to get around another problem. Some scientists think that herds of giant mammals regularly trample them to death. So maybe these plants evolved to grow taller and taller to stay out of their hooves, or maybe they just wanted to get closer to the sun. Whatever the reason, our ancestors couldn't use them as building materials since they likely reproduced so quickly that no structure humans built would stay upright for long. So living among these monsters was dangerous, to say the least. But humans were resourceful, and many of the tools they developed to survive the Pleistocene epoch are still in use today. They created spears to hunt animals and sharp knives to defend themselves against anything that got too close. But maybe they didn't need weapons at all, because some monsters proved to be their own worst enemies. Take the mola mola, a relative of the modern-day shrew that grew to the size of a house cat. It had huge teeth and claws and probably spent most of its time searching for food. But it was also incredibly clumsy. It walked right into fights with giant predatory birds called terror birds, and often lost. So if you were a human living among monsters, you could always count on the small ones to pick off the big ones, and that made your life just a little bit easier. Okay, now it's time for a quiz. Which monster would have been the hardest to fight? A, the Acrocanthosaurus, B, the hypercarnivore, or C, the Malamola? Let me know your answer in the comments section below. And while you're there, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.